The studio was already tense before the cameras turned on. Not chaotic, not loud, just tense in the way that happens when everyone in the room knows something might go wrong and no one's sure who will pull the trigger. Jasmine Crockett had agreed to appear for a primetime interview on national television. It had been pitched as a serious discussion about the state of American politics. She had been told she would be speaking as a congresswoman, not as a character, not as a soundbite, not as a trap. But everyone who worked in television knew better. This wasn't journalism. This was bait. And the hook was already in. Donald Trump had agreed to appear on the same segment. His team demanded topic control, segment control, and a handshake clause that he would not be fact-checked in real time. Jasmine's team had their own conditions. No personal attacks, no manufactured outrage, no baited framing. The producers agreed to both, which meant they were lying to someone. 10 minutes before they went live, Jasmine's chief of staff caught something on the internal teleprompter. A newly added question in the segment flow. Congresswoman Crockett, do you still believe Trump voters are racist? No one had told her that line was coming. No one had cleared it. Jasmine didn't say anything. She closed her folder, stood up, and walked straight to the set. She didn't ask for the line to be removed. She didn't negotiate. She just walked. The crowd applauded as she entered. They were clapping for the idea of confrontation, not knowing what was coming, not knowing what they were about to witness. Donald Trump was already seated, that grin too wide, too ready. The host started the segment with cheerfulness. Tonight, we're joined by two powerful voices in American politics, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett and former President Donald Trump. Trump leaned in first. Well, powerful is a strong word for someone who hasn't done much. The audience chuckled. Jasmine smiled. I wasn't president, she said. But thank you for acknowledging that words can still hold power. The host asked a question about the state of division in America. Trump answered quickly. The country's a mess. It's being torn apart by people like her. Jasmine kept her hands folded. You mean people who fight for voting rights? Or people who refuse to lie for applause? Trump scoffed. I mean radicals who hate America. Jasmine's voice was steady. I love this country enough to tell the truth about it. Trump leaned forward. You called my supporters racist. Jasmine turned fully to him. I said that when people support racist policies, they are enabling racism. If that makes your supporters uncomfortable, maybe look at the policies, not the people calling them out. Trump interrupted. Oh, here we go? Playing the race card. Jasmine didn't flinch. Say that again. What? Say that again. You know what you just said. The audience froze. The host tried to pivot. Let's stay on track. Now, before we witness what happens next in this explosive confrontation, and trust me, you've never seen Jasmine Crockett like this. I need you to understand something. What you're witnessing is exactly why mainstream media doesn't want these moments public. They'll try to bury this footage, edit it, pretend it never happened. But we're here exposing what they desperately want hidden. If you want to keep seeing the real truth, not the sanitized version they feed you, hit that subscribe button right now. I'm serious. Do it now before they pressure us to take this down. We're the only channel brave enough to show you what really happens when the cameras think they're off. Subscribe and join the resistance against their lies. Now watch what Jasmine does next. Jasmine leaned in just enough to make her presence unmissable. You don't get to lie and then hide behind the flag. You don't get to divide people and then claim unity. And you don't get to gaslight a black woman on live television and expect applause. Trump stood up. I've done more for black Americans than any president since Lincoln. Jasmine stood too. You've done more to black Americans. Not for us. And if you think a photo op erases the fear you fueled, you're more delusional than dangerous. The room was silent. Jasmine didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Because what she said next would outlive every clip, every reaction, every attempt to bury the moment. I don't hate America. I hate what it lets men like you do without consequence. I refuse to love it blindly. That's the difference between obedience and loyalty. I will never be obedient to a bully. The host tried to close the segment. "We're going to take a break." Jasmine didn't move. "You can cut to commercial," she said, still looking at Trump. "But the truth doesn't disappear just because the cameras do." And then she sat down. The former president walked off. The internet was already catching fire. The network cut to commercial, but the damage was already done. Inside the studio, no one moved. Not the audience. Not the host. Not the producers behind the glass. Jasmine Crockett sat in her chair like a monument. Steady. Unshaken. She didn't look angry. She looked like someone who had seen this setup before and decided, this time, she wouldn't play along. Trump's exit wasn't just a moment. It was a rupture. The kind that can't be edited into something clean. The cameras were still rolling when the host finally spoke again. "Well," he said, "this is what live television is." But his voice was thinner now. The power had shifted. Not to him. Not to the network. To the woman who was still standing, without having to raise her voice once. Backstage, Trump's team was in full panic mode. A senior aide shouted into a phone, demanding the segment be pulled from streaming. It was unfair, they said. It was hostile. But even as they barked into legal lines, the footage was already flooding every major platform. On TikTok, on X, on Instagram, uncut, raw, from 3 different audience angles. Jasmine's voice, calm, deliberate, devastating, was being clipped and replayed on loop. "I will never be obedient to a bully. You don't get to gaslight a black woman and expect applause. The truth doesn't disappear just because the cameras do." Each line hit harder the second time. Cable news tried to spin it. One network ran a lower third banner that read, "Crockett, meltdown, hijacks interview." Another called it a staged ambush of a former president. But it didn't land. Because no one watching the raw footage saw a meltdown. They saw a refusal. A quiet, immovable refusal to be baited, belittled, or reduced. And then came the flood of response. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez posted, "Dignity under pressure." Jasmine said what millions have been afraid to say on live TV. Cori Bush added, "This wasn't rage. It was truth." And that's what scared them. Even some conservatives struggled to control the backlash. One GOP strategist tweeted and deleted, "She stayed calm. He lost it." That's the clip. That's the story. Now, what happens next is exactly why the mainstream media doesn't want you to see this. They'll try to bury it, edit it, pretend it was less explosive than it was. But we're showing you the unfiltered truth. If you believe in seeing what really happens when celebrities crack, if you want the raw footage they desperately try to hide, hit that subscribe button right now. Don't wait. Do it now before they pressure us to take this down. Join thousands who refuse to accept their sanitized version. Subscribe and be part of the truth movement. Now watch what made them cut to commercial immediately. The network didn't release an official statement that night. They were too busy calculating what could be salvaged. The host said nothing on social media. His usual monologue that night was postponed. And when the episode finally aired again in edited form, Jasmine's final 2 lines had been cut entirely. But they were already everywhere. The next day, Jasmine returned to Capitol Hill. She didn't hold a press conference. She didn't go on another interview. Instead, she posted a single video, filmed in her car, no lighting, no staff. She looked tired, not defeated, just tired in the way women get when they've spent years being expected to stay calm while being disrespected. "I didn't go on that show to fight," she said. "But I also didn't go there to be a prop. If telling the truth makes someone walk off set, then that says everything about who's really afraid of a real conversation." She paused, then added, "And for the record, I don't play the race card. I live the reality." Within hours, the video had over 12 million views. Donald Trump's team released a rebuttal statement accusing her of grandstanding. They said she was unprofessional, ungrateful, and irrelevant. But it was too late. The moment had already outgrown them. The headlines started changing. Crockett holds her ground as Trump walks off live TV. Congresswoman's calm dismantles Trump's deflection tactics. Not obedient to a bully, the line that sparked a movement. By the end of the week, 3 members of Congress who had previously declined to criticize Trump openly referenced the segment in floor speeches. The White House press secretary was asked about it. Saturday Night Live ran a parody sketch, but even that couldn't match the real footage. And in cities across the country, something rare began to happen. College students, mothers, young activists, people who had never felt seen in those spaces began quoting her, printing her words on signs, sharing screenshots, demanding each other the clip like it was an inside truth only the brave could see. Jasmine never raised her voice. She didn't need to, because the system had tried to script her as the angry black woman, and instead, she delivered a mirror. A cold, flawless mirror that reflected the truth back at the people who thought they controlled the stage. And for the first time in a long time, the audience didn't laugh. They listened. The clip was only 2 minutes and 17 seconds long, but it broke through the news cycle like nothing else that week. Not because of a scandal, not because of a PR stunt, but because it felt like something that had been waiting to happen for years. A woman told the truth on live television, and the man who claimed to be the strongest in the room walked away first. At the network headquarters, meetings were held behind closed doors. Legal reviewed contracts. Publicists went silent. One executive described the broadcast as a failure in containment. Another called it an unscripted editorial disaster. But on social media, people had a different name for it. The unmuting. That's what they were calling it now. The moment Jasmine Crockett refused to stay in her lane. The moment a black woman stayed composed while a former president unraveled. In classrooms, professors played the clip as part of media literacy lessons. In political strategy meetings, staffers dissected her cadence, her precision, her refusal to perform outrage. In homes, families who had stopped watching political shows years ago gathered around one video and watched it on loop. Because it didn't look like a takedown. It looked like something deeper. Something that made people rethink what power actually is. A week after the broadcast, the network reached out privately to Jasmine's team. They offered her another appearance. A full hour. Total editorial control. A public apology. Jasmine declined. She didn't need their stage anymore. That same day, a young woman in Atlanta tweeted, "I've never seen someone stay that calm while being disrespected like that." Jasmine Crockett didn't raise her voice. She raised the standard. That tweet got over 200,000 likes in 24 hours. And then came the mural. In Houston, on the side of an old radio station, someone painted Jasmine's final quote from the broadcast in all caps. The truth doesn't disappear just because the cameras do. Local news tried to ignore it, but people kept showing up to take pictures. Jasmine still hadn't done a victory tour. She still hadn't gone viral in the traditional way. She stayed focused. Legislative work, community meetings, real things. But what she had done couldn't be undone. Now, before we show you the final moment that forced the network to issue a formal statement, I need you to understand something. The mainstream media doesn't want this part shown. They'll try to edit it, frame it, pretend it was all just tension. But we're here showing you what they don't want on air. If you believe in seeing what really happens when power gets uncomfortable, hit that subscribe button right now. Don't wait, because they've already tried to make this disappear once. Join the movement that demands honesty. Subscribe now and see how Jasmine Crockett forced the system to finally flinch. The pressure kept building. Sponsors had questions. Viewership had spiked after the incident, but not in the way the network wanted. New viewers came not to be entertained, but to see if something real would happen again. But nothing could follow it, because nothing had matched it. And then came the joint letter, signed by 10 members of Congress. All women, most of them women of color. It wasn't a resolution. It wasn't even legislation. It was just a letter that said this: "We are not here for entertainment. We are not props. We are not set pieces in someone else's drama. We are public servants. We are human beings. And we are done performing for people who don't respect us." It went viral, not because it was loud, but because it was the echo of something Jasmine had already made clear, live, unfiltered, unshakable. Trump's team tried once more to reframe it. They released a 2-minute video splicing together moments from his presidency with dramatic music and a voiceover calling him a fighter for truth. But no one was listening anymore. Because for once, America had watched a woman speak truth directly to power and refused to be broken when power shouted back. And for once, power blinked first. Jasmine Crockett didn't become a meme. She became a milestone. For everyone who had ever been told to be quiet. For everyone who had been called angry when they were just honest. For everyone who had been interrupted, condescended to, baited, and expected to smile through it. Jasmine gave them something different. She gave them permission to stay seated when the bully stands. To speak clearly when someone expects them to shout. To end the performance, not with a walkout, but with a mirror. And the reflection was undeniable. The truth isn't loud. It doesn't shout. It doesn't need permission. It just waits until someone brave enough stops playing along and speaks it. That night, Jasmine Crockett didn't just confront a man. She confronted a system. And the system cracked.